You are not becoming a millionaire. You are entering the phase where it is already done. Listen carefully. This is not about chasing money, forcing outcomes, or waiting for the world to change. This is about a shift within you so real, so complete, that your outer world has no choice but to reflect it. Right now, in this very moment, a new version of you is awakening. The version that no longer wonders, will it happen? But calmly knows, it is happening. That is the millionaire phase. It begins the moment you stop identifying with lack. Not when your bank account changes, but when your inner conversation changes. Because everything you see on the outside is simply a delayed echo of what you have already accepted as true within. So if you are still thinking, I hope money comes, you are standing outside the door. But when you begin to feel, of course money flows to me, it's natural, it's normal, you have already stepped inside. The millionaire phase is not loud. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush. It is quiet certainty. It feels like peace. It feels like calm confidence. It feels like walking through life, knowing that things are aligning, even when you cannot yet see how. This is where most people get it wrong. They look for proof first. They say, show me the money, then I'll believe. But the truth is the opposite. You believe first, and then the evidence must appear. So what does it mean to enter this phase? It means you begin to think from wealth, not of wealth. You no longer imagine money as something far away. You start making decisions as the version of you who already has it. How does that version think? They don't panic over small expenses. They don't doubt their worth. They don't question if they deserve abundance. They move with ease. They trust opportunities. They expect success. And most importantly, they feel secure within themselves. That feeling is the doorway, because money is not just numbers. It is a reflection of energy, identity, and belief. When you embody the identity of someone who naturally attracts wealth, circumstances reorganize around you. Opportunities begin to appear. Ideas come effortlessly, transform at the right time. What once felt difficult starts to feel smooth, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. And when you change, everything must follow. Now understand this. Entering the millionaire phase does not mean there will be no challenges. But challenges no longer shake you. They no longer define your reality. Instead, you see them differently. You say, this too is part of my path. This too is leading me forward. That mindset alone separates you from the old version of yourself. The old version reacted with fear. The new version responds with certainty. And that certainty is powerful, because the world responds to who you believe you are. If you believe you are someone who struggles, you will continue to find reasons to struggle. But if you accept deeply and completely that you are someone who prospers, then life will begin to mirror that belief in ways that may even surprise you. So right now, stop waiting. Stop looking at your current situation as final. It is not final. It is just a reflection of past thoughts. You are now planting new ones. Feel it. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the version of you who already lives in abundance. See how they walk. Notice how they speak. Feel how relaxed they are about money. There is no anxiety there, no chasing, no desperation, only ease and quiet power. Now bring that feeling into your body. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, because the moment you feel it as real, you have shifted states. And when you shift states, you shift reality. This is the beginning of your millionaire phase. Not when you see the first million, but when you become the person for whom a million is inevitable. Stay in that knowing, return to it again and again. Even if doubts appear, do not fight them. Simply return to certainty. It is already unfolding. I am already aligned. Wealth is already part of my life. Repeat it until it feels natural, because once it feels natural, it becomes your truth. And once it becomes your truth, it becomes your reality. You are not trying to enter this phase anymore. You already have. Now live like it. The moment everything begins to change is the moment you stop identifying yourself as someone who is trying to get money, and instead begin to recognize yourself as someone who already has it. This is not imagination for the sake of comfort. It is a deliberate shift in identity, because as long as you see yourself as a person who wants money, you are unconsciously reinforcing the state of not having it. Desire, when held in that way, keeps the goal distant. It keeps wealth somewhere in the future, always just out of reach. But something powerful happens when you move beyond wanting, when you no longer wake up thinking, I need more money, and instead begin to feel, money is already a natural part of my life. That subtle shift changes everything. It changes how you think, how you react, how you carry yourself, and how you interpret every situation around you. Your identity is the foundation of your reality. Every experience you have is filtered through who you believe you are. If you believe you are someone who struggles financially, you will continue to notice obstacles, delays, and limitations. Even opportunities may appear uncertain or risky. But when you adopt the identity of someone who is already financially secure, your perception transforms. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw problems. You begin to trust outcomes where you once expected disappointment. This is why the millionaire phase does not begin in your bank account. It begins in your mind. Because the bank account is only a reflection, not the source. The source is your inner assumption about yourself. Think about it. A person who truly knows they are wealthy does not constantly worry about money. They don't overanalyze every decision with fear. They don't feel threatened by temporary setbacks. There is a quiet confidence within them, a stability that does not depend on external confirmation. That is the state you must enter, not by force, but by acceptance. You are not pretending to be someone else. You are allowing yourself to step into a version of you that already exists, a version that is simply waiting for your recognition. And recognition comes through repetition, through consistently choosing to think, feel, and respond as that version of yourself would. At first, it may feel unfamiliar. Your mind may try to pull you back into old patterns, reminding you of your current circumstances. It may say, but look at your situation. This isn't real. And that is where your power lies. Not in fighting those thoughts, but in gently returning to your chosen identity. Again and again, instead of reacting with doubt, you remain steady. You remind yourself, my current reality is only a reflection of past thinking. I am creating something new now. And as you continue to hold that inner position, something begins to shift. Not all at once, not in a dramatic burst, but gradually, naturally, like a seed growing beneath the surface. You'll notice small changes first. A different attitude toward money. Less fear, more ease. You might start making decisions with greater confidence, speaking with more certainty, or feeling less anxious about the future. These are not random changes. They are evidence that your identity is evolving. And as your identity evolves, your actions align with it. You begin to move differently. You may take opportunities you once ignored. You may think of ideas that never came to you before. You may connect with people who support your growth. None of this is forced. It flows from who you believe you are. This is the key. Your outer world organizes itself around your inner state. Not because of luck, not because of chance, but because your perception, behavior, and energy all shift to match your identity. When you see yourself as someone who already has wealth, you naturally begin to live in a way that reflects that truth. So instead of asking, how can I become wealthy? Begin asking, who am I being right now? Because the answer to that question determines everything. Are you being someone who doubts, hesitates, and waits? Or are you being someone who trusts, moves forward, and expects success? You don't need permission to choose. You don't need external proof to begin. The shift is internal, and it is available to you in every moment. Even now, you can decide to let go of the identity that says, I am trying, and replace it with one that says, I am becoming, and then even beyond that, I am. Because once you fully accept that you are already aligned with wealth, the struggle begins to dissolve. The chase begins to fade. And in its place comes a sense of calm direction, of quiet, knowing that things are unfolding exactly as they should. This is how the millionaire phase truly begins. Not with a number, but with a realization. A realization that you are no longer separate from what you desire. A realization that what you once placed in the future is now something you carry within you. And when that realization becomes stable, when it feels natural and unquestioned, your reality has no choice but to reflect it. There is a profound difference between thinking of wealth and thinking from wealth. And that difference is where transformation truly begins. Most people spend their lives thinking of money, imagining it, wishing for it, worrying about it, planning around its absence. Even when they dream big, their thoughts are still rooted in distance. They see wealth as something outside of them, something to be reached, something that requires effort, struggle, or time before it can be experienced. And without realizing it, they keep reinforcing the very gap they are trying to close. But the shift happens when you stop placing wealth in front of you and begin placing yourself within it. When you start thinking from wealth, everything changes. Your perspective changes. Your reactions change. Your sense of self begins to stabilize in a way that no external condition can shake. You are no longer hoping things will work out. You are operating from the quiet assumption that they already are. Thinking from wealth is not about arrogance or illusion. It is about alignment. It is about tuning your inner world to the frequency of the life you intend to experience. Because every decision you make, every interpretation you form, and every emotion you carry is influenced by the position you are thinking from. If you think from lack, even abundance can feel temporary or uncertain. But if you think from wealth, even temporary challenges lose their power to disturb you. Consider how a person who is truly secure approaches life. They do not rush into decisions driven by fear. They do not cling tightly to every opportunity as if it might be their last. There is a natural ease in the way they move, a grounded confidence that allows them to choose wisely rather than react impulsively. That is not something money creates. It is something that precedes it. It is a state of being. When you begin to think from wealth, you start to embody that same state. You become less reactive and more intentional. Instead of asking, what if this doesn't work? You begin to think, this is leading somewhere valuable. Instead of worrying about loss, you focus on flow. Your mind shifts from survival to expansion. And this shift is subtle but powerful, because your outer world is constantly responding to your inner assumptions. When you think from wealth, you naturally align your behavior with that belief. You may find yourself speaking more confidently, taking action with greater clarity, or noticing opportunities that once felt invisible. These changes are not forced. They arise effortlessly from your new perspective. The challenge, however, is consistency. It is easy to feel confident for a moment, but true transformation requires stability. There will be moments when your current reality seems to contradict your new way of thinking. Situations may arise that tempt you to fall back into old patterns of doubt or fear, but this is where your awareness becomes your strength. Instead of reacting automatically, you pause. You recognize that what you are seeing is only a reflection of past thinking, not a definition of your present identity. And in that moment, you choose again. You return to the state of thinking from wealth. You remind yourself that your inner position is more powerful than any temporary circumstance. Over time, this becomes easier. What once felt like an effort begins to feel natural. The calm confidence you practice becomes your default state. You no longer need to remind yourself constantly because it becomes who you are. And when that happens, your reality begins to shift in ways that feel almost effortless. Opportunities begin to align with your expectations. Situations that once caused stress now feel manageable or even beneficial. You begin to experience a sense of flow, where things unfold with less resistance and more coherence. This is not coincidence. It is the result of your inner alignment. It is important to understand that thinking from wealth does not mean ignoring practical action. Rather, it enhances it. Your decisions become clearer because they are no longer clouded by fear. You act with purpose, not desperation. And that difference in energy often leads to better outcomes. You also begin to trust yourself more. Instead of constantly seeking validation from the outside, you rely on your inner sense of direction. This trust is a key component of the wealthy mindset because it allows you to move forward even when the path is not fully visible. You are no longer waiting for certainty. You are embodying it. And as you continue in this state, something remarkable happens. The idea of wealth stops feeling like a distant goal and starts feeling like a natural part of your life. It becomes integrated into your identity. You no longer think about becoming wealthy. You simply operate as someone who is. This is the essence of thinking from wealth. It is not about pretending or forcing belief. It is about gradually shifting your inner position until it feels real, stable, and unquestioned. It is about choosing, in each moment, to align with the version of yourself who already lives in abundance. And once that alignment is established, your external world begins to mirror it. Not instantly, not magically, but inevitably. Because when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are all moving from the same place, your reality has no choice but to follow that direction. There is a principle that quietly governs every transformation. And once you understand it, you begin to see why so many people struggle despite their effort. They are waiting to feel successful until after success arrives. They are waiting to feel abundant until they see money in their hands. But the truth works in the opposite direction. The feeling must come first. The inner experience must be established before the outer world can reflect it. Most people have been conditioned to believe that emotions are a response to circumstances. They think, when I have more, I will feel secure. When things improve, I will feel confident. But that way of living places your power outside of you. It makes your inner state dependent on something that has not yet happened. And as long as your feelings depend on external proof, you remain in a cycle of waiting. The shift begins when you reverse that pattern. When you allow yourself to feel now what you once believed you had to wait for. When you choose to experience abundance internally, even if your current situation has not yet changed, this is not denial, it is creation. Because your feelings are not just reactions, they are signals. They are instructions that shape how you perceive, how you act, and ultimately what you experience. To feel abundance is to enter a state of ease. It is a quiet sense of sufficiency, a calm awareness that there is enough and that more is always available. It is not excitement alone, and it is not forced positivity. It is deeper than that. It is a grounded, stable feeling that does not fluctuate with every external change. When you touch that state, even briefly, you begin to understand that abundance is not something you chase. It is something you embody. At first, your mind may resist. It may point to your current circumstances and say, how can you feel abundant when the evidence says otherwise? But this is where your awareness becomes essential. You begin to recognize that what you see around you is only a reflection of past states, not a limitation on what you can feel now. And in that recognition, you gain freedom. You no longer need permission from the outside world to feel the way you choose. You can generate the feeling within yourself. Through imagination, through focus, through the deliberate choice to align with the version of you who already lives in abundance. You begin to ask yourself, if everything were already working in my favor, how would I feel? And then instead of answering intellectually, you allow yourself to experience that feeling directly. Perhaps it feels like relief. Perhaps it feels like quiet confidence. Perhaps it feels like a sense of expansion, where possibilities seem open and natural. Whatever the feeling is, you stay with it. You let it settle into your body. You return to it whenever your mind drifts back to doubt, and something begins to change. Not necessarily in your external world at first, but within your perception. You begin to notice that you react differently to situations. What once triggered anxiety now feels manageable. What once felt uncertain now feels like an opportunity. This shift in perception is not small. It is the beginning of alignment. Because when you feel abundant, you behave differently. You make decisions from a place of confidence rather than fear. You are more open, more receptive, more willing to engage with possibilities. And these changes in behavior naturally influence your outcomes. You begin to move in ways that support growth, often without even realizing it. At the same time, your attention shifts. Instead of focusing on what is missing, you begin to notice what is present. You become aware of resources, opportunities, and connections that were always there but went unseen. Your world starts to feel richer, not because everything has changed, but because your way of seeing has. This is how reality begins to reflect your inner state, not through sudden miracles, but through a series of aligned experiences that build upon one another. A new idea leads to a new action. A new action leads to a new opportunity, and each step reinforces the feeling you chose at the beginning. It is important to remain patient during this process, not passive but patient, because the outer world has its own rhythm. It responds to your inner state, but it does so in a way that unfolds over time. If you become impatient and return to doubt, you interrupt the flow. But if you remain steady in your feeling, the process continues. You also begin to develop trust. Not blind belief, but a quiet confidence that what you are doing internally is meaningful. You no longer need constant validation from the outside, because you can feel the shift within yourself. That inner confirmation becomes enough to keep you moving forward. And as this continues, the gap between your inner experience and your outer reality begins to close. What you once imagined starts to take form. What you once felt internally begins to appear externally. And when it does, it feels natural. Not surprising, not overwhelming, but expected. Because by that point, you are no longer trying to create abundance. You are expressing it. You are living from it. And your reality is simply catching up to the state you have already accepted as true. There will be moments when your mind tries to pull you back. Moments when doubt appears quietly, almost convincingly, asking you to question everything you've begun to accept. It may not come loudly or dramatically. It often comes in subtle thoughts. What if this doesn't work? What if nothing changes? What if I'm just imagining all of this? And if you are not aware, those thoughts can slowly take root and begin to shape your feelings again. But this is where your true power is revealed. Not in avoiding doubt, but in choosing not to engage with it. You must understand that doubt is not an enemy. It is simply a habit of thought, a reflection of your old identity trying to reassert itself. It carries no real authority unless you give it attention. The moment you begin to argue with it, analyze it, or try to fight it, you are feeding it energy. You are making it feel more real than it actually is. Instead, you take a different approach. You let it pass. Just as you would watch a cloud move across the sky without trying to control it, you allow the thought to come and go without attachment. You don't deny it, and you don't accept it. You simply refuse to build a story around it. And in that refusal, it begins to lose its power. At the same time, you return to your chosen state, gently, consistently, without force. You bring your awareness back to the knowing you have decided to live in. It's already happening for me. Not as a desperate affirmation, but as a calm recognition. A quiet truth that you return to again and again, regardless of what appears in front of you. This repetition is not weakness. It is discipline. It is the process of stabilizing a new identity, because certainty is not something that appears instantly and remains unshaken. It is something you build through consistent return. Each time you choose belief over doubt, you strengthen that inner foundation. Each time you refuse to be pulled into old patterns, you create space for a new reality to take hold. There will be times when the external world seems unchanged. Times when you look around and see no immediate evidence of what you are claiming within. These are the moments that test your alignment. Not to break you, but to refine you. If you allow your certainty to depend on visible proof, it will always be unstable. But when your certainty comes from within, it becomes independent of circumstances. It becomes a steady presence, something you carry with you no matter what is happening around you. And this kind of certainty changes the way you move through life. You become less reactive. You stop interpreting every situation as good or bad, success or failure. Instead, you begin to see everything as part of a larger unfolding. You understand that not every step will look like progress, but every step is contributing to it. This perspective allows you to remain calm even when things are unclear. It allows you to continue forward without needing constant reassurance. And in that calm, your decisions become clearer. Your actions become more aligned. You stop acting from fear and start acting from trust. It is also important to recognize that ignoring doubt does not mean suppressing your thoughts or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing where you place your attention. You acknowledge that doubt exists, but you do not give it control over your state. You do not let it define your direction. Instead, you anchor yourself in the belief you have chosen. You return to it when your mind drifts. You reinforce it through your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. And over time, this belief becomes more familiar than doubt. It becomes your default. As this happens, you will notice that doubt begins to appear less frequently. And when it does appear, it feels weaker, less convincing. It no longer has the same emotional impact. It becomes something you can observe without being affected by it. This is the shift from instability to certainty. And with that certainty comes a different experience of life. You no longer feel like you are trying to control everything. You no longer feel the need to constantly check if things are working. You begin to trust the process you have set in motion. You understand that your role is not to force outcomes, but to maintain alignment, to remain consistent in your inner state, regardless of external fluctuations, because it is that consistency that allows your reality to reorganize itself. And as you continue in this way, something remarkable happens. What once felt uncertain begins to feel inevitable. What once required effort begins to feel natural. Your belief no longer feels like something you are practicing. It feels like something you know. And when you reach that point, your outer world begins to reflect it more clearly. Not because you pushed harder, but because you remained steady. Because you chose certainty again and again until it became who you are. So when doubt appears, let it pass. Do not follow it. Do not build upon it. Return to your knowing. Return to the quiet recognition that what you have accepted within is already in motion. And allow that knowing to guide you, consistently, calmly, and without interruption. You have heard the idea, you have felt the shift, and now everything comes down to one simple truth. You are no longer the person you used to be. Something within you has changed. You are not standing outside your desired life anymore, looking in with hope. You have stepped into it internally, and that is where all transformation truly begins. Understand this clearly. Nothing you have imagined, felt, or accepted within yourself is wasted. Every moment you chose belief over doubt, every time you returned to certainty, every instance where you felt abundance before seeing it, these were not small acts. They were the very movements that reshape your reality. You are not waiting anymore. Waiting belongs to the version of you who believed things were separate, distant, and uncertain. That version is fading. In its place stands someone who knows that what is accepted within must in time appear without. There is no need to force, no need to chase, no need to question every step. Your role is simpler, yet more powerful than anything else. To remain aligned with who you have decided to be. To think from that identity. To feel from that truth. To trust, even when the world is still catching up, because it will catch up. Reality has no choice but to reflect a sustained inner state. It may not happen all at once, and it may not unfold in ways you expect, but it will happen. Not as a coincidence, not as luck, but as a direct result of who you have become. So walk forward with that quiet confidence. Let your actions come from certainty, not fear. Let your thoughts return again and again to the knowing that everything is already in motion. And when doubt tries to appear, meet it with calm indifference. Knowing it no longer defines you. You are not building something from nothing. You are revealing what has already been established within you. And as you continue in this state, you will begin to notice it, not just in small signs, but in real, undeniable ways. Doors opening, opportunities aligning, circumstances shifting. Not because you chased them, but because you became the person for whom they are natural. This is your new phase. Not a future promise, but a present identity. Hold it, live it, trust it, and allow your life to reflect it, fully and completely.